Please listen carefully.
Hello, universe. Welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. I'm Arielle Tienko.
And I'm Summers McKay.
And we are part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions to news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day in order to change the tenor of news media, social media, and the direction of your day to get us all focused on solutions.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And also, we are sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, home office-worthy, listen on a plane-worthy podcast. Today is Tuesday, the 16th of November, 2021. Hello, Arielle. Welcome back to the Optimist Daily Update. How are you today?
I'm doing really well because I had a very busy weekend, and I actually have a friend who I haven't seen in years visiting me in Amsterdam. So that's how I am today. How are you, Summers?
I am likewise well. As all you listeners know, we fudged it on Friday, recording Mondays ahead of time so we can do a quick weekend catch up. I had a great weekend in the long saga of becoming a soccer mom. My daughter had her final scrimmage. Now, yes, she is 27 months old, and yes, it is absurd, but I'm pretty sure I'm raising a future Olympian.
I'm pretty convinced watching the video that you showed me. She has really good soccer skills.
She does, and then she had swim class the next day. Anyway, we had a fun weekend, but it was a little bit exhausting. I will admit, and I think most parents might admit this as well, but Monday morning is kind of my recoup morning when I get to get myself back on track, when I take my daughter to her school where she learns tremendous and amazing things, and I know she's well cared for and loved and has an expansive experience. And then I can get home and drink my cup of coffee quietly and find, the socks that are missing in the kitchen and, just sort of reconvene with myself. I'm sort of finding that Monday morning is my sacred time. So we had an amazing weekend, but I did cherish some sacred time yesterday morning. And now we're into the week and it's full swing. And I think you are hopefully ready to talk about your Optimist Daily Challenge that you took on last week, right? What were you gonna do? You were gonna cook something so you could be closer to people.
Yeah.
Be less stressed. What'd you make?
How'd it pan out? Well, I was supposed to cook with beet stems, because we actually wrote a story about that. But I completely failed. I'm going to admit. My week was just a lot busier than I thought it was going to be, and I just decided to leave it to the experts. Maybe I think I have an issue with trying things that I don't feel like I'm going to be good at, which is a character flaw that I'm willing to work on. So check back with me next week and we'll see if I actually make something.
Well, I will help you rewrite that word character flaw to character trait.
There we
right?
go.
Just part of who you are. We don't need to assign judgments against something like you want to just do things you're good at. That's just part of what makes you human, also what makes you really good at the things that you do. So if you cook this week, awesome. If you don't, just go do something you're really good at, because the world loves you whether you cook or not, my dear.
Thanks, Summers. I should definitely be on this call and this podcast for more days of the week for this uplifting news for me.
Yes, exactly. And uplifting news for Arielle and uplifting news for the world. Okay, well, part of what we do here at the Optimist Daily is try to uplift everyone, both our colleagues and our audience. So, Arielle, why don't you get to work on uplifting people with some moving news?
All right, so
don't mock my transitions, people. We've all come to expect that I am the queen of dad jokes.
Yeah, I do love them, to be honest. I could love a good pun. Okay, so moving on. My headline reads, "Could universal basic mobility end youth disconnection?" So as we know, if you've been following the Optimist Daily, the concept of universal basic income is being tested in cities around the world to explore how no strings attached payments can improve standards of living for vulnerable individuals. Now, some cities are going beyond payments and are embracing universal basic mobility as another strategy to empower marginalized workers while encouraging a future that prioritizes green transportation. So, 100 young people residing in Bakersfield, California, have been selected to take part in a year-long study that will examine how free access to public transit, e-scooters, e-bikes, the like, affects their lives and independence. Bakersfield actually has one of the highest rates of what's called youth disconnection in the country, with 400,000 people between the ages of 18 and 24 not in school and not working in 2019.
That's a pretty remarkable number of students, right? That's something that I think, people might be surprised by, right? Is recognizing that this is a legitimate challenge, right? There are a lot of kids who are not engaged in what you would expect a normal teenager to be engaged in.
Yeah, and this is like supposed to be the time of their lives where they're
Mhm.
exploring things and really making connections, seeing what they like, what they don't like. But a big contributing factor to youth disconnection is the lack of public transportation. So
Mhm.
young adults can get connected with work and school opportunities and just getting out there because cars are expensive and also not very, if it's not an electric car, then it's not very environmentally friendly either. So I think this generation is extremely conscious of that as well. But Bakersfield is not the only city that's experimenting with this. There are also more cities out there that are exploring how mobility empowers residents, like Oakland, where
Mhm.
500 residents will receive $300 of prepaid debit cards to be used for transit and shared mobility services. Also, Pittsburgh is exploring a similar program with 50 young adults, and Los Angeles is focusing their grant supported mobility efforts in South LA. So, mobility adds to how secure we feel in life, both financially and socially, according to Angela Sanguinetti. I hope I said that right. She's a research environmental psychologist who says if you don't have reliable access to places you need to go, that can cause a lot of anxiety. And I think that by reading this article, I'm realizing that I completely agree and have actually felt the positive effects of living in a city that is so pedestrianized and accessible like Amsterdam. So it'll be interesting to follow these studies and see what conclusions are drawn.
I think, being able to interact with your city and having pedestrianized environments is so meaningful as long as it comes in concert with tremendous amounts of open space, right? So then you
Hmm.
have it's both sides of the coin, right? Being close to where we live, where we work, where we shop, and being able to walk around and be part of a community is so important as long as there is also an expansive experience. And I know Amsterdam does a really good job at that.
Hmm.
Also, Amsterdam has like great public transportation options. So I think it'll be interesting to see as this rolls out in certain areas in the United States and other cities. I know that I've lived in several places. The central coast of California just had very few resources as far as public transportation goes. And now where I live
Hmm.
in Austin, Texas, we are very heavily reliant on individual vehicles. So these models will be great for communities of the future as they develop. Now, I'm going to take this movement conversation straight on through to a business and fiscal decision for employees. This headline reads, delivery riders in Germany will now get bikes and phones from their employers. Now, this is a little bit touchy here because there's implications for a lot of different industries as we read this article, but I think it's so important to look at. In a landmark achievement for workers' rights, food delivery services in Germany will now have to either provide their couriers with bicycles and mobile phones or pay them compensation as part of their employment agreements. Decision came after the country's federal labor court ruled in favor of a particular bike courier, Philip Schurk. I probably butchered his name too. It's what we do here on the pod. But good old Philip. He took a job from delivery platform Lee Ferrando to court, demanding that they give him the tools necessary to actually do his job. Now, the idea that delivery riders would already have their own bikes or their own mobile phones and should just use them. So the assumption that there wouldn't be significant or undue burden on the worker in order to have those tools to do their jobs was really upended with this recent policy. This contradicts the basic legal idea of the employment relationship, according to which the employer must provide the work equipment essential for the performance of the agreed activity and ensure that it is in good working order, is the ruling from the court. The implications of this, as many can think about when we think about Uber drivers, when we think about, freelance work, using computers and, having cell phones, right? There is this assumption. And I remember back when I was in a company that initially paid for all their employees' cell phones, and there was a transition where the decision was that they wouldn't be paying for them anymore, that employees, in fact, would have to have their own cell phones. And it was this technological transition where when we went from everybody who has an employee got a cell phone and therefore could be reached all the time nonstop to now you're paying your own cell phone, that appropriate boundary of, well, that means if I'm paying for my own phone, you can't call me all the time, right? So some of this experience, this relationship we have with our employers and the work we do can be architectured with the tools that we are given. So I think it's really interesting, and I like that Germany has done this, and I think certainly people should be compensated for the use of all of their tools that they bring to work. That being said, lots of small companies and independent contractors want to do stuff, their own way, and so the idea of, we just have to pay attention to how business evolves, because this idea that you can just use your employees' tools, right? Like your employees' computers or your employees' cell phones, and you can call them on them whenever you want. This all may have to evolve in what the working relationship is like with each employee. So Arielle, you were talking the other day about appropriate boundaries and that you wouldn't be looking at something at 11 o'clock in the evening. And I laughed because I just sometimes forget you're in a different time zone. But in all of our different work, and you have kind of had a career like with the side hustle and the independent contractor, and you run your own tutoring business in addition to being a writer. So are you able to come up with effective boundaries, or how do you handle it?
Well, it's like you said, it kind of evolved over time. I realized that I shouldn't be working on weekends, which was kind of an adjustment for me, because a lot of my students, I teach Spanish, a lot of my students have more time on the weekend, but I just had to tell myself that I wasn't going to be the best teacher I could be if I was working 7 days a week.
Right.
I had to make that decision, and I'm really happy with it. And I think my students are happy with it as well, because they can expect me to be patient, which is what you have to be as a language teacher or any teacher whatsoever, and just good energy, high energy, not dragging my feet through a class. And same with the writing. I just need to have a clear mind. And I think that if people take that into consideration, it might be easier to draw those boundaries. That's just my advice. But it's all going to be different for everyone.
Right. Well, and look, advice is as much as we use it to advise our own decisions. So I like your boundaries. I think you're a great writer, and I think you're probably a great Spanish teacher, although we haven't had that contract yet.
Yeah, if you ever are interested, I'll be available.
My daughter Spanish remotely, because at 2, she should be bilingual.
Yeah.
Now, moving on to other amazing stories today on the Optimist Daily. What else do we have?
There is one headline that says the benefits of corporate gifting. Another one reads, zinc could provide relief for cold and flu symptoms. And Finland proposes a law to help close the gender wage gap. It's very important. And then there's another one that reads, overwhelmed by small decisions, you may be suffering from decision paralysis. Summers?
I like that one. Research also says you shouldn't pressure a picky eater. Done with the clean your plate mentality. 5 ways adults can reconnect with a love of scientific learning. Does your compost have mold? What it means and what to do about it. And last but not least, researchers discover a new deep earth mineral with the help of a rare diamond. That and much, much more, as always, is available on the Optimist Daily. Please come back and hear us again every day of the week. We will continue to share positive solution-based stories with ideas on how you can participate in this changing world and ensure it is changed for the good. If you have not already, please consider becoming an emissary on theoptimistdaily.com or give the gift of emissary membership to someone you love this holiday season. Let's keep the Optimist Daily free to all who need it, supported by those who can. Arielle, thank you for being here. We will see you next Tuesday, and everybody else, we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.